of Kwame, particularly from the standpoint of Kwame's principled approach to the struggle, because people don't talk about this nearly as much as we need to. You know, it's very important to talk about the principled behavior of someone like a Kwame Ture, because we are in a situation where we have to convince the masses of people that revolutionary struggle is the best way for us to achieve our liberation and our forward progress. And since the masses of people have been consistently bombarded with anti-revolution propaganda by the capitalist system, the best methodology for us to convince people is for us to demonstrate the value of revolution through our behavior. If people see revolution the way the capitalist system wants them to, like it's just bloodthirsty, barbaric people that identify as revolutionaries, then no one's going to want to be that. But if we can portray revolutionary principles and behaviors the way that people like Kwame Ture practiced it on a day-to-day basis, this is the formula that will get people on our side. So we start by just doing our introductions. The program is Our Ancestors' Voices, sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the APRP. Each week, same time, same place. The APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass, Pan-African political party. We are a political party. We are nothing else but a political party based in Africa, nowhere else except Africa. And our objective is Pan-Africanism, which we define as one unified socialist Africa. And I have to say that like that each week because I get regular messages from people. I just had well-meaning people, someone, well, what are you doing about, what is the APRP doing about reparations? We're fighting to organize for revolution. Revolution is all the reparations we need. That's the only principled way to get reparations, because we don't negotiate with terrorists. We're not going to sit down with the slave masters and the operators of the capitalist system, the people that stole all of our wealth, and continue to steal it and negotiate a payment from them. That's an insult to the legacy of our ancestors. We'll never do that. So I know that people mean well, but they just don't understand. So that's why we have to do our best to explain that we are interested in one thing only. As Kwame Ture said, the power of the organized masses to make change. That's the only thing we're interested in. I don't want to cash no checks from my enemies. I don't want to even see my enemies except see them be destroyed. So that's who we are. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is not being done on a whim. It's not being done on a hope and a prayer. It's being done on scientific study, scientific analysis, and practice. And you can find those elements in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, which will explain everything to you about the work the All African People's Revolutionary Party is doing today all throughout the world. And this program, Our Ancestors' Voices, is hosted each week by myself and Shakura, my biological and ideological daughter, and we are both organizers in the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And for all of you who identify as fathers, meaning that you have played a role in somebody's life that helped nurture them and develop them into quality human beings. And by quality, we mean people who see the world as larger than just their own individual interests or the interests of their family, but see the necessity to contribute more to the world than they consume. Then we honor you today, because you should be honored, because it's certainly not easy to do that work, especially as an oppressed person in this backward world and society that we live in today. So we're glad that you're here, and we're going to talk again about the immortal Kwame Ture, the legacy of Kwame Ture, why 25 years after his physical transition, that legacy continues to grow. And so to get us started, I'll turn it over to Shukura.
Thank you, kind sir. I appreciate you. And of course, I would be remorsed without acknowledging, even though this is a capitalist institution, I do want to acknowledge that I would not be on this seminar without you, and that's physically, but also ideologically. and mentally. So I just wrote a very brief poem that I'd like to share and not interrupt our timing too much. So if my phone will open. All right. So, Daddy, I am humbled to know you and thankful for your dedication to me. I am proud and privileged to be an African, period. Can't you see? I know this because of your constant consistency and commitment to raising me with a class knowledge. Without you, I would be ignorant about my people and selfish about education from college. You have always been a supportive role model for me, and I am forever impacted. I know capitalism causes challenges, but I find love and hope for my people through integral behavior acted. Every day is Father's Day, and you and me continue to grow. I am thankful to you and the party for everything that I know. All right. So thank you for just allowing me to do that, you all. Okay, so let's talk about KT. All right. So Kwame Ture. Oh my goodness. All right. So we start off by understanding that, when people make decisions in their lives, some of us are feeding off of media attention and we're feeding off of popularity and things like that. So we don't make decisions based on the fact that we care about other human beings or the fact that we really want to change the world and make it better, because capitalism doesn't teach us to think like that. You have unique people such as KT, Kwame Ture, who actually do have visions for making the world a better place, and did have visions for wanting things to be better for any person who was faced with oppression. And so, we're not in a position where we have to think about these decisions and not think about the consequences. There were several times in KT's life where he made decisions that would have made him considered to be unpopular in capitalism. And I love this quote that talks about the African proverb, even a dead fish can swim with the current, because it takes so much integrity and so much bravery for you to fight back and to resist the system that we live in every single day. Any person, it would be so much easier to just go with the system, right? That's why I made the comment about my ignorance for the system. My ignorance for the system has allowed me to understand that college is not an opportunity for me to just graduate and then get my Mercedes Benz and move to a very expensive part of Memphis and to make sure that I can treat other people with crap because I make more money than them. No, being a college educated person has allowed me to understand it's my job as an organizer to use every single bit of information I have taken from all of these institutions, just like they've taken from us, and to then turn around and use that information to advance the conditions of people around me. Not just colonized people, not just poor people, but every single person, because we all deserve a better world than what we're living in. And so even a dead fish can swim with the current just speaks to that in terms of what it means to resist, what it means to stand up for what you know is right, even if you are the only person doing it. So even if you were in a college class and you are speaking out against a reading that was assigned, even if you are at a job place and someone is being treated harshly, if you are witnessing someone being rude to somebody at the grocery store, somebody being rude to somebody on the bus, whatever that looks like, resistance is literally going to save all of us, because falling in line with this system has not gotten us very far. And for those who are still choosing that path, good luck to you. That is not the road that I want to take, because I've noticed that Africans still are being murdered and shot down when the path is followed. I've noticed that African women are still being constantly disrespected, and some of us are scared to have children because we are worried we will die from maternal mortality rates. I have noticed that our African LGBTQ folks are still dealing with homophobia because of all these stupid legislations that are being passed in these very bigoted parts of the southern US, where they are not even allowed to be themselves and they have to apologize because they want to be who they are. And yet these paths have continued to take. So in my opinion, at least if I am resisting, I am being integral and true to myself. In my opinion, at least I can sleep good at night, because I know that I have nothing to feel guilty about, because I have tried my hardest to make this world a better place for African people and for other colonized or poor, impoverished people. We have to keep in mind of why we are making a means to think about KT in the space that he is in. He has made countless sacrifices and affected every single one of us on this call, even if none of you have ever met this man. He has still impacted you in more ways than you can ever know. He has impacted each and every one of us because of the legacy that he has left and because of the choices that he's made, because of the choices he made, not just in the Southern US, because everything is not about the US. He made choices where he sacrificed and made a conscious effort to go home to the continent and made a conscious effort to do organizing work on the continent as well as in the diaspora. And so we're going to talk in more detail about that, but we need to understand that that is why we are honoring Kwame Ture today, because this brother was not afraid to put up people first. This brother was not afraid to prioritize people over profit. He was proud to do that every single day of his life. He did that. And even when he was sick, he was still doing that. We're going to talk in a few slides about his unfortunate physical transition with cancer, but we had a seminar earlier today with the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and some of the comrades were talking in great detail about their memories that they had working with KT. Some of them were talking about how he was already diagnosed and still doing the work, still traveling to college campuses, speaking on behalf of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, or speaking on behalf of a Pan-Africanist who had the ideology that he had. And so this is how we understand that this system is worth resisting, because we have ancestors like Kwame Ture who have literally made it possible for everyone in the Western Hemisphere to even be a part of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, because he, after guidance from Kwame Nkrumah, helped start chapters here in the US. And so we'll move on to the next slide and continue talking about his legacy. But we must keep in mind, this brother was definitely worth more than we are giving him. And the next time you're thinking of ancestors to honor, we should, honor MLK and honor Malcolm X, but we should throw some new names in the mix. We should throw some new names in the mix of folks that we don't know as much about, but we're learning and we're growing. And we should try really hard to increase our political education and join an organization that's working for justice, so we can learn just more about this brother and what he was doing and all of the organizations that he was a part of. Because he's not a hypocrite. He was in numerous organizations that were working for justice. And what I loved most about Kwame Ture is that with his organization elevation, he started off with, these ideologies, and then they started growing. And as they grew, his Pan-Africanist side started coming out. And so that's precisely what we're all about, right? Is helping to make it clear that we have to have a Pan-Africanist lens. We can't just center what's happening in the world to Africans that it's happening in the Americas. We can't center what's happening to Africans in the Caribbean. We can't center what's happening in Canada. We must center what's happening on the continent and Canada and the Americas and the Caribbean, so that we can have a broad understanding that what's happening to us in one part of the world is also happening in another part. And until we fix the problem at home, which is the root cause of the problem, meaning the continent is not in our control. We do not control the resources that are being used on the continent. So therefore, why would anyone who comes from the continent be respected if the resources that come from the continent are not respected? This is what that's going to take. And so we think about that in more context and think about how much of a gift it was for KT to have the vision that he had. He didn't have to be humble. He didn't have to have a collectivist ideology. He didn't have to think about people over profit. He didn't have to believe in that. He didn't have to travel all around the world talking to college students, trying to engage us on a deeper level so that we could join organizations that were working for justice. And he does not have to have the camaraderie and the collaboration efforts that he had in terms of working with other colonized organizations, such as the Palestinian groups or such as our indigenous comrades. This brother was bad beyond measure, you all. And it comes a time where we need to understand just how his story started off. You know, he wasn't born with this African name. He chose this name as he developed his thoughts, as he developed his value structures, and as he learned more and more about the conditions of African people. And we can think more in great detail about that, because these principles that he practiced every single day, he also shared them with other people as well. And he demonstrated for us how to show them. And then he was consistent with showing those principles. I remember as a little girl, my dad spoke again at the seminar earlier about how he would travel in great detail to Northern California. And so I remember he would stay at our house, and he was always just very busy, and he was always talking about why we need to organize. And I couldn't have been more than what, 3 or 4, daddy. So the details of everything he was saying are obviously a blur. But my point is, I remember thinking, man, this man is down for the people, and he is always working. Even as a 4-year-old, I was like, wow, he is always talking about the struggle, and he is always talking about organize. And I remembered he used to say, organization decides everything. Like, I remember it like it was yesterday. I think he even answered the phone with that greeting. Organization decides everything. And so we have to be very clear about that, because we can use that in our everyday lives. We don't have to just use organization decides everything here on this seminar today. We should be using the principles that KT has taught us in every aspect of our life. When you go to the grocery store to pick up your groceries for the week, when you are going to the mailbox to check your mail, when you're walking your dog, when you're taking your cat to the vet's office, you should always be practicing the principles that Kwame Ture has laid out. Why? Because they are effective for promoting humanity. And promotion of humanity decenters and deconstructs capitalism, imperialism, and class divide. And so the more humanity that we have, the less divided of classes we are going to be, which means capitalism and imperialism will not stand a fighting chance. But we must understand that. We must think about how this brother devoted over almost 40 years of his life doing this work and trying really hard to do it from different angles so that we all could have a chance at what was going on. I remember learning about him through the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and then thinking about him as a Black Panther, and thinking about the work that he did when he decided that he wanted to join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I'm truly humbled to even be able to say this ancestor's name, because I truly would not be sitting on this couch as a member of this organization had it not been for him. And again, we just have to think about how he could have chose a different life if he wanted to. I don't think any organizer who's truly serious about their work, I don't think they wake up every day and they are really excited about the fact that because they are resisting the system every single moment of their days, that their lives are more closely ready to be ended. I don't think they enjoy knowing that they're constantly under attack. But I don't think that's enough to stop us. I think we understand that there's something greater than us thinking about ourselves. There's the individuality piece, right? I think we think that there's something greater than ourselves. And I think we understand that this world right now is messed up. And we don't want to sit by and do nothing. We don't want to sit by and just watch Hulu. We don't want to sit by and just watch out the window as we see injustice taking place. We want to do everything in our power to change the conditions for people. Because we know that the conditions can change because we have hope, but we also know that every single one of us has a special gift to allow those conditions to change. We just have to push ourselves, and we have to apply ourselves. And honestly, I am figuring out what my gifts are because I'm in an organization that is working for justice, because I'm increasing my political education every single day. I'm learning more about what my skill sets are, and in order to help other people be able to mobilize so that we can organize against any oppressor or colonizer who is trying to remain in control of our resources. Because my objective is to help Mother Africa become free so that African people everywhere can have a fighting chance. But I also want to help the indigenous people get their land back and become free. I want to help Palestinian people get occupied Palestine back. A win for one of us is a win for all of us. And Kwame Ture, I don't know any other ancestor who might have understood that better than him. And so we think in just more context about all the work that he did and all the sacrifices that he had, and why it really is important to commit to your principles. If you don't have any principles, then you should develop some, and then you should stick to them. So take your time developing them. Don't rush through that, because if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. But Kwame Ture understood what he stood for, and he made it very clear that as he was on his last breath dying bed, he was a man of principle. And because of him, we all have his passion coursing through our veins. Maybe not biologically, but ideologically for sure. So join an organization that's working for justice and allow Kwame Ture to hand you the metaphoric baton. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to use his legacy to impact the people around you and to make this world a better place? Do you understand that that is your responsibility, to make this world better than how you entered it? And if you don't understand that, the best way you can start to learn is by joining an organization. Ashe.
Ashe. Shakura, thank you so much for that wonderful Father's Day poem. I loved it, and I love you and appreciate you. That just makes the whole day just even more wonderful than it already was. So thank you very much for that. And you said something that made me remember. I want to tell a quick story. You talked about Kwame answering the phone, and he might have used the phrase that you mentioned, but the one I remember he always used to use was "ready for the revolution." And once when he was staying at our house, you know me, like I always got in trouble with these capitalist jobs. So I was one of those times I was looking for a job and waiting for people to call me. And he was at the house and he was waiting for calls. And so the phone rang and he picked it up, "ready for revolution." And your mom was like, "Okay, you're not going to get a job." Him answering the phone like that. And, we had a big laugh about it. We still kind of laugh about it when we talk. But I was like, okay, I guess I'm probably not going to get a job. But then another part of me was like really proud that that was happening, and just like we'll just deal with the consequences. And of course, like everything else, it works out, because really to the core of your message, the fact that I've been in the All African People's Revolutionary Party all these years, I've learned such skills, such organizing skills, writing skills, the ability to have vision, to create a vision, to carry out work, that I've never had a problem with capitalist wage slavery. I've never had a problem with that. I've always been able to get jobs in the capitalist system that pay very well. I work for a labor union right now, pays extremely well. And all the skills that I bring to that, I got that from organizing within the All African People's Revolutionary Party. You can call them and ask them. I tell them that every day. So we are serious when we're talking about the legacy of Kwame Ture, because we know that, like Shakur said, and I saw in the comments, that we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for this work. From the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee to the Black Panther Party, to the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the Democratic Party of Guinea, of which he was a member of both organizations at the time of his physical transition. This African constantly grew and learned from his errors. And that's so significant. That's so important that so many of us need to learn that. This African learned from his errors. And because he was such a widely known figure, his errors were documented. Most of us don't have to worry about that. A lot of us, in fact, we can say something and it can be totally insane, and then we can change what we were saying and nobody knows what we said before, and we're not honest enough to admit it. So we can just act like we always had the clear position from the very beginning. Well, for someone like him, that's just not possible, because everything he did was documented since the time he was a very young man. So a lot of people point to many of the of these types of things to try to make some sort of dig or assessment against Kwame Ture. For example, during the birthday rally, February 17th, 1968, in Oakland, California, the birthday rally for Huey P. Newton, who was incarcerated at that time in the Young Black Panther Party for the shootout with the cop, where the racist cop Fry was killed on the streets of Oakland. And so Huey P. Newton was in jail because of that. And the Black Panther Party organized a massive party there at the Henry Kaiser Center there by Lake Merritt in Oakland. And the keynote speakers were many, but three of them were the folks coming in from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee: Kwame Ture, who was Stokely Carmichael then, Jamil Abdullah Alameen, who was H-Rap Brown then, pardon me, and James Foreman. All three of them were leaders in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And during Kwame's presentation, he talked about Marxism being a white ideology, Karl Marx being a white man, and it not being relevant to African people. And I think to illustrate the point I'm making about Kwame is that as he began to grow in his political consciousness, as Shakura mentioned, he recognized that making such a blanket statement is probably not the most scientific way to go about life. And although we acknowledge today that Marxist-Leninism is a great ideology, but it's not exactly what we need as African people. It doesn't take into account our African culture. So that's why we say that we're in Crumis Terreus Cabralis, not Marxist-Leninists. But Kwame did acknowledge that his statements about communism and socialism being for white people were not scientifically correct. And I think that's important because most of us, again, don't have the courage to. Some of us, you never hear us say we were wrong. You'll never in life hear us say, I was wrong about that. I needed to grow in my consciousness. We don't have the humility to do that. And this man did. He did it often. He did it often. So it's important to point that out as a principle, because that's such an important behavior. If you're saying you're a revolutionary, to be able to say you're wrong and that you need to grow and change your behavior. So that's just something that definitely needs to be said. And his recognition of Kwame Nkrumah's vision for a revolutionary cadre and his willingness to carry that vision. What do I mean by that? So Kwame Ture understood, as Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Amilcar Cabral, all of the great African revolutionaries wanted him to understand, that the struggle was not about him. It wasn't about elevating him to the high point of leader and everybody having to listen to him. It was about creating a mass political party. Mass meaning it belongs to the masses of African people. And so the way to do that scientifically is to create revolutionary cadre. The definition of cadre being people who have demonstrated a commitment to the struggle. People who have demonstrated a commitment to the struggle. And the way you demonstrate that is you engage in the principles of the struggle in your actions, in the work that you do, and you do that over a long period of time so that it's clear that you understand and are dedicated to living your life that way. And so this man understood that that's what we needed. We didn't need individual leaders. I had a wonderful conversation with the youth in the work study I'm putting together here right now that I'm working with. And that's our training in the capitalist system, because it's an individualistic system. Well, we need leaders. And you hear this all the time. And it came up in the work study meeting. We need leaders. The problem now is we don't have leaders like we did in the 60s. And I explained to these young Africans that actually we're in a better position now than we were before, because in the AAPRP, we understand, and a lot of other organizations and people are coming to understand, that the key to our salvation is creating millions of leaders, millions of cadre, because they cannot kill all of us. They can't co-opt all of us. They can't get all of us to sell out. Some of us will die. Some of us will sell out, but not all of us. So this is clearly a strategy that will make it impossible for them to compromise our struggle. Kwame Ture understood this. And because he understood this, he began to build the All African People's Revolutionary Party from this principle. It was never about him being the leader and nobody could question him. It was always about building cadre. And so all of the experiences I had engaging with Kwame Ture, he constantly encouraged me to struggle with him and to struggle with everybody in the party and to see that as my responsibility. And when we struggled, he had a position and we had a position. And it took time, but over time, myself and others, we began to gain confidence and we would struggle with him. And it made us stronger and it made him stronger because it allowed us to understand that what we were trying to achieve was bigger than ourselves. And that's the most important lesson we can learn when we're trying to build capacity to fight back against this enemy that we have. But it takes humility on the part of someone like Kwame Ture to push their ego aside and not make it about them. We have a ton of people we can name that never learned how to do that and still don't know how to do that today. It is commitment to sacrificing personal comforts. Man, oh man. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how this African did that. I mean, he was, back in those days, y'all, we had no money. He was sleeping on our couches and we had no money. So the couches we had were not worth a damn. We didn't have $3,000 comfy couches like people have today. We had couches that we found on the street or we got from the Goodwill. If we bought it from a Goodwill, we thought we were doing really good. So he came and slept on those couches, or maybe, you know, we would give up our bed, but our bed wasn't much better than the couch. It came from the same places the couch came from. But this African never complained about that, not once. I'm talking about going 15-hour days, traveling all over the place. I know because I took him there. I was with him. And him speaking to thousands of people, answering 1 million questions, then getting in the car with us and struggling with us, seeing it as his responsibility to develop us. And then finally getting to our house. We didn't have any money for a hotel. We didn't even think about that. Getting to our house and having to lay in our dilapidated bed, as tired as he must have been. I mean, I feel so guilty about that today because I feel like I wish we had a better capacity to provide for our strugglers, all of our people. I mean, not just Kwame Ture, all of our people who have made such great sacrifices in this struggle. I have a whole lot of people that I'm thinking of right now. My big brother, Sekou Neblet in Ghana, brother Mukasa Dada, a whole lot of people, sister Mawina Coyote. I wish we had better capacity to take, not because not a single one of them ever asked for that, but because they deserve that. They deserve to be able to rest with all the work that they did. But my point is that this African never complained about that. Eating the food that we ate, and we did not have money to have expensive food. We ate what we could afford. We ate Campbell's soup. We ate what we had, and this African ate it and never complained. He was never like a lot of these people that many of y'all look up to today, that if you offered them Campbell's soup, they would cuss you out and try to have you killed and tell you, you better take them to Red Lobster if you want them to speak at your event. This African was built from a different type of cloth and just did not do that. And his love for African people, despite our indifference towards his sacrifice, I witnessed so many times, so many of our people so disrespectful towards this African, so disrespectful, telling him things like, well, you got people killed in the 60s. And this coming from people now, back in them days when I'd be there and people were saying that, and I was doing security for this brother, I wanted to harm those people. But I realize now that that's just because I didn't have the experience to know how to properly address their confusion. Now I understand clearly that how the hell you gonna question his contribution? You're not even making one. And he had much more humility. He never responded like that to anybody, although in my view, he would have been within his rights to do it. But I would respond to someone like that. How the hell are you gonna question what he did? And I have responded when people have raised that about him. How are you going to question what he did? You're not doing a damn thing. Like, why would we listen to you? What your opinion is worthless. You know, it's like me talking about bearing children. It's absolutely worthless. Only a fool would listen to it. But this man never took that posture. He had greater humility than I do, I guess. He never took it. Instead, one of my things is like, I'm gonna defend the people who defend our people with integrity. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna stand out in front of them and throw fire at the people trying to destroy their legacy. And I'm not gonna apologize for that. If you don't want to get hit by fire, don't try to attack these people that sacrifice so much for us. But this African never did that. He just graciously accepted these criticisms from these people who didn't have the qualifications to criticize or rat, and tried to spend time and patience answering them and trying to address them as best he could. Even though in my mind, while I'm looking at these people, I'm like, these people ain't gonna do a damn thing to advance our people's struggle. The only reason why they're standing up talking right now is they just want to be seen talking in front of a lot of people. That's what it was. Because when we would go to talk to those same people afterward, they didn't want to talk to us. They weren't interested in the organization. They just wanted to be seen and heard. But he had the patience. And I'm saying all this to say that his approach is the correct one, because we have to have patience with all of our people, even the ones that don't make any damn sense, because everybody has potential to grow. And this African always understood that. And I love this picture here, because this really exemplifies who Kwame Ture was. Like Shakur said, he was involved in supporting all of the struggles and made sure that the All-African People's Revolutionary Party had that foundation and was engaged the same way. So this picture is Kwame sitting with Bill Kunstler, who was a longtime lawyer for movement people. And then sitting on the right is Dennis Banks, of course, one of the co-founders of the American Indian movement during his trial for the charges they brought against Dennis Banks for the Wounded Knee situation, where the American Indian movement made an effort to reclaim Wounded Knee and stayed there for a period of about 70 days in South Dakota. And so they brought charges on all of the AIM leaders like Dennis Banks and Russell Means. And so Kwame Ture was there in South Dakota to show support for his brother in the American Indian movement. And this is the type of spirit that we learned in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, to be there for people, not just to talk about it, but to be there for people. And Kwame didn't go to that trial alone. There were dozens of AAPRP organizers that were at that one. When Russell Means was on trial, when Leonard Peltier had been on trial, we were there to show that support. So this is just one of the examples of the organizational contributions that Kwame taught us and that he lived by. And today we still direct people. We get a lot of people that contact us. A lot of them are indigenous people. And when I talk to them, I tell them all the time, you can't join the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. This organization is for African people. But you should join the American Indian movement. You should join the Illahee Spirit Runners. I give them the contact information. Now, some of you in those organizations, you may not necessarily hear from all of those people, because y'all understand this, right? We are organizers. So one of the things I've learned over the years is to test people. I tell them, like, here, you should contact this organization. I want to see if they're going to do it. Because if they do it, that tells me they're serious, and then I'll spend my time with them. If they don't do it, that tells me that they're like the people that I described just now. All they want to do is talk and be heard, and just on that. Well, then I can't spend my time. I only have so much time with them. So a lot of those people, you may not hear them, but the number of people that we direct you all's way, you will begin to hear from some of them. So that's how the organizational work takes place. That's how the organizational contributions take place. And Kwame's early work to travel around strengthening the relationships in Africa to build the All-African Committee for Political Coordination, the AACPC, which is the strategy Nkrumah laid out in the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare to achieve Pan-Africanism. Kwame Ture was one of the people who began to initiate a lot of that work. in Guinea-Bissau in the 60s and 70s. He began to do that work. Now we have all types of quality cadre on the ground in Guinea-Bissau. I was just there a few months ago. I work with them. I know they're there. I don't need you to believe it. I don't give a damn what you believe. We have quality cadre on the ground in Guinea-Bissau. We got quality cadre in the Democratic Party in Guinea, the organization that Kwame served on the Central Committee for many years. They're in Guinea. We have quality cadre on the ground in Azania, or what they call by the colonial name South Africa, in the Pan-Africanist Congress, in the Azanian People's Organization. We're building it all over Africa. And a lot of this initial work came from the work of this African here, Kwame Ture, as well as Shakur mentioned, his work coming out here to the diaspora. I joined the All-African People's Revolutionary Party after hearing this African speak. We used to call it the Kwame Ture Recruitment Drive, KTRD. I joined, I signed up. I didn't join right away because I didn't have the discipline. I was 18 years old and I wanted to go on the cruise street and drive my car and talk to the young women on there. I didn't want to commit myself. They called me from the party. Are you ready to commit? And I'm like, how can I get these people off the phone? But again, one of the principles this brother taught us is to have patience with your people. So the people didn't give up on me, and they kept coming, they kept organizing, and eventually it worked. Eventually that came around. And that's the principles we learned from watching how this man worked. You know, his early recruitment work within the APRP was based on that type of approach and building the structures in the APRP that we still have in place today. This man made a major contribution towards contributing to that. And then his work again with building relationships with the indigenous people, with the Palestinian community, traveling all over the world, traveling to occupied Palestine, to Lebanon, to those places to work within the Palestine Liberation Organization and build those relationships, to work with the American Indian Movement, to work with the Irish Republican Socialist Party, to do all of this work, to build these relationships with these organizations. This African was in the forefront of that, serving as on the board for the Libyan Mataba and the Libyan Jamahiriya that was in power up until Barack Obama and US imperialism bombed them into submission in 2011. Kwame Ture was on the board for the Libyan Jamahiriya, played a role in lobbying that board to vote in favor of awarding $1 million in cash to the Palestine Liberation Organization at that time. Helping that body vote to award $1 million in cash to the American Indian Movement. Whether they received the money or not, I don't know. But my point is that this African played his role in supporting concretely the forces on the ground that are fighting for liberation. His work to build the African United Front, his work to do that, to unite African organizations, which is a part of our strategy. You can go on YouTube right now today and look at the speech at the 1995 Million Man March in Washington, D.C., here in this backward empire, that Minister Louis Farrakhan gave. And at the end of that speech, Minister Farrakhan said, join some organization working for our people. And if you have any damn sense, you know that's not the line position of the Nation of Islam. That's what the All-African People's Revolutionary Party advances. And that was our work through the participation of Sister Mawana Coyote. Minister Farrakhan asked Kwame Ture to be on the planning committee for the Million Man March, along with himself and Dr. Maulana Karenga, Dr. Conrad Worrell, and all of those former leaders, most of who've gone on and made their transition at this point. But we wanted to struggle around this question that the capitalist system is attacking African men. Of course it is, but it's attacking African people. It's attacking all oppressed people. So we intentionally sent a woman representative, Sister Mawana, to be our representative on the Million Man March Planning Committee for 1995. And through that work, we got that push join an organization. We were able to, the nation had the theme of reconciliation and atonement, and we wanted to make it a little more political. So we pushed the concept of the National Day of Absence. If you all remember, the call was made, don't go to work that day. That was us that pushed that. That was the work of this African and other Africans to push these political concepts among our people and to push us to understand the necessity to become organized. That's what that was about. And of course, probably one of his greatest contributions was pushing to organize the work-study circle process in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. What that is, you all, if you don't know, is every 2 weeks, we have to go and have a meeting to discuss readings we've done in a collective circle that we're a part of. It's our base involvement in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. You have to read a minimum of 70 pages every 2 weeks, 7-0, every 2 weeks. And you have to come and discuss, and you have to facilitate, you have to rotate. You can't just be somebody that doesn't, sits there and doesn't say anything. You have to participate and facilitate and prepare questions and be a part of the process and engage it. And so this process over time builds your facilitation skills, builds your analytical skills, builds your speaking skills, builds your confidence as an organizer. This African had the vision that this was necessary to create the type of revolutionary cadre that we need. And I believe that this is one of the most important contributions that could ever be made. Because with this in place, now we got people who are dedicated and have these principles, and we don't have to depend on him. So although he's been gone physically for 25 years, we still all know what to do and are doing it, and didn't just fall apart because he's not here anymore. The work-study process is essential, and everybody in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party has to participate in a work-study circle. I'm in one, a cadre circle. Shakura's in one. People in Canada are in one. People in the Caribbean, all over Africa are in work-study circles. Africans in Guinea-Bissau, work-study circles. Ghana, work-study circles. Azania, work-study circles. Senegal, Burkina Faso, work-study circles. This morning in the seminar we had that Shakura mentioned, the comrades from Burkina Faso were on the seminar, getting it translated into French from their work-study circle there. This is the legacy, you all, of Kwame Ture. We are all studying the same thing as African people. Maybe it's in French, maybe How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. Some of our people are reading it in French. Some of our people reading it in Portuguese. Some reading it in Spanish. Some in English. But we're all reading the same thing. And we're all taking the information from that book and going out on the ground to do the same work wherever we are. This is the legacy of this African. So don't come to me with this talk only about what he did in SNCC and the Black Panther Party. That was 6 years of this man's life. He spent 30 years in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, in the Democratic Party of Guinea. And that, I would argue, was the most significant work that he did. Nothing, I love the Black Panther Party. I love the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. But that work in Africa was an elevation above the work in SNCC in the Black Panther Party. It was a culmination of an increased consciousness, because we know that Pan-Africanism is the highest expression of Black power. And this man personified that. And so the lessons that we get from Kwame Ture is we look at a picture of him in Guinea with Kwame Nkrumah and Shirley Graham Du Bois when he was in the process of studying the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare with Nkrumah there in Guinea under the protection of the Democratic Party of Guinea and Ancesotr Ture, along with Amilcar Cabral in the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau, the PAIGC. They were all there under the protection of the Democratic Party of Guinea and Ancesotr Ture. So don't tell us a damn thing about Ancesotr Ture and the Democratic Party of Guinea. White people, well, Ancesotr Ture, like, I'm not listening. There's not, you may as well just be speaking Mandarin Chinese to me. You don't know anything about Ancesotr Ture. You don't know anything about the PDG. You don't know anything about the AAPRP. You don't know anything about Africa. You don't know anything about anything we're doing. And your opinion is absolutely worthless to us. So shut the hell up and go in your own communities and organize your people and get the hell out of our way. We ain't listening to you. So the lessons from Kwame Ture, his humility, and I know that's kind of funny coming from me after talking like that, but humility is something that we all should work on every day. I definitely do try my best to do that, to be humble, to be a cadre organizer, period, not to be a leader. And that part, I think I've learned that lesson from him and others quite well. And I think the way that I've learned to approach my work has been modeled after what I observed from Kwame and Mawana and all the rest of them. I've never built a work study circle, and I've built many of them where I'm the leader and everybody has to come through me. It's always been the minute you join, and Shakura's on here, she can tell you, because the same thing I've told her since the time she joined. This is your party. These are your people. This is your revolution. You have to own this and take responsibility. You don't owe me a damn thing. So that part I did learn correctly. And I appreciate Kwame because he didn't say it the way that I say it, but he practiced it. And I learned from observing his practice. And never any excuses. The man never made any excuses. And never any regression. Never any selling out. You know, if you look at the video of his homegoing service in Guinea Conakry in November of 1998, it's on YouTube. And Jesse Jackson speaks there. He traveled all the way to Guinea to speak at Kwame's funeral. And at the funeral, Jesse said, this man refused to compromise to capitalism. And I looked at that and I thought, well, you would know, because that's all you've ever done is compromise to capitalism. So, you know, even when people don't adhere to principles themselves, when you do adhere to principles, they have to respect that. Even if they're not doing it, they have to respect it. This man never made any aggression, never apologized for being militant, never tried to smooth out militancy, always tried to raise the bar, always tried to make the fire hotter. And we all could learn a lesson from that. And was always reliable, consistent, always had courage and commitment. If the man said he was going to be there, he was there, you all. He was there on time, you all. He was ready to go to work. And I've definitely done everything I can to learn that message. If I say I'm going to be there, I'm there on time. And I'm ready to work. I'm prepared. I'm not disorganized. I'm ready to make my contribution. I've learned that from the example this man gave us. And I'll be honest, I don't have patience with people that don't know that. I don't have patience with people when they're not on time. You come in fumbling and come in disorganized, and then you want everybody to recap what happened. I mean, you know, the other day I was leading a meeting and somebody came in late. And they were like, well, I don't know what we're talking about. And I said, well, we're talking about what all of us were talking about. They were here on time. That's what we're talking about. So we gotta normalize that we have to make this struggle a priority. It has to be important enough for us to take it seriously. Malcolm X was correct. If you just show up late, you're saying that that's not important. And he was correct about that. I believe that 100%. And Kwame understood that. And I understand it too. And Kwame maintained a commitment to principled ideological struggle. The man understood that we have to struggle with people. Stop all this passive aggressiveness, this weakness, this cowardice. You got a problem with somebody, take the problem to them and talk about it. That's what this man did. And that's what we have to learn to do. That is a severe weakness, even to this day. People will write a long email. Just stop being a damn coward. Pick up the damn phone and call the person and say, look, I think what you did was unprincipled, and here are the reasons why. And this is how I think we can correct it. Normalize that type of behavior. That's what this brother did. And then while all those around him, stop getting on social media and criticizing people. You really think that's doing any good? All that's doing is helping you let off steam and provide the police with weak spots in our movement. Pick up the damn phone and be principled for once in your life. While all those around him compromised, this African stayed loyal to his principles. And we appreciate him for that. He gives us a guiding light to take us forward. All we have to do is study his life and pay attention. and understand him when he said he didn't want fame, he didn't want fortune, he didn't want money. All he wanted was the power for the organized masses. All he wanted was power for the organized masses. Remembering Kwame Ture, he deserves to be remembered. And we will never let people forget his legacy. And we want to invite you back next week, Sunday, June 25th. You know, there's about to be increased violence in this world, not just in this backward country, but all over the world. And so we're going to talk about best practices for how to prepare for that violence. So join us next week. We talk about that. Go to the APRP Forward Ever shop, buy something, tell people, buy something else, tell some more people, tell some more people. Join the All African People's Revolutionary Party, you all. APRP-INTL.org. Join, tell your friends to join. You know, the people talking all, well, what are people, what we need to do? What organization are you in? That's what I always ask. What organization are you in? Oh, I ain't in the I don't need organization. Okay, well then I don't need to listen to you. Because if you ain't in the organization, you ain't serious. So I don't need to listen to you. So we need to normalize that, okay? And go to www.abetterworld.me for this and all the videos and other things, other information. Hood Communist is a great source. Support it. Independent Revolutionary African Voices. Support all of our programs that we have. Please do that. And my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. A lot of what we'll be talking about next week is coming out of what I have in the book, concrete ways to prepare yourself to defend yourself. So we want to ask you to tell people about that and to join us next week. We hope that you have a great rest of your Sunday. If you commemorate Father's Day, then we want to honor you. If you've earned the right to be honored, we definitely want to honor you for that. And we also want you to commemorate Juneteenth, which is tomorrow. Not saying that we're freed as slaves, but commemorating our ongoing struggle to be free. And do that. And use the 4th of July for what it is, a day of mourning. We love you. We appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, you all. Forward ever, backwards never.